the day I received my admission letter to Stanford University. My cousin Olivia knelt in front of me, clutching her stomach, and confessed that she was pregnant with my boyfriend's child, begging me to let them be together. I couldn't help but burst into laughter. I had been worrying about how to break off my engagement with that jerk, graduating from a prestigious university, inheriting the family fortune, and becoming a billionaire sounded far more appealing. Men would only slow down my path to success one after dying from overwork. I was reborn. As soon as I opened my eyes, I found myself staring into a pair of pitiful-looking eyes. My cousin Emma, dressed in a plain white dress and dragging a large suitcase, stood at the door of our home. This was 1 month before the high school entrance exams. Emma, now a junior in college, claimed that our house was closer to her school and came to stay with us. "Emmy, why didn't you tell Uncle in advance? He could have picked you up," Dad said as he pushed me aside, eagerly welcoming Emma into the house. Then, he let her move into my room. Rubbing my arm that had been bumped by Dad, I squinted my eyes. How did I handle this in my past life? The memories came flooding back vividly. Proud and defiant, I had refused to give up my room, leading to a heated argument with Dad and earning myself a slap across the face. This incident had caused Mom and Dad to have a major fallout, further straining their already fragile relationship. Not only that, but Emma had gone on to flirt shamelessly with my boyfriend, Lucas. Distraught over losing everything to Emma, I became consumed with the idea of driving her out of our house and away from Lucas. Consequently, my once stellar academic performance plummeted, and my exam scores were only good enough for a community college. Later, Mom and Dad divorced, and I ended up living with Dad. Emma framed me for pushing her down the stairs, and Dad kicked me out of the house. She married Lucas with a hefty dowry Dad provided, while I struggled to find a decent job after graduating college. I ended up working on an assembly line in a factory, where I eventually died from overwork. This time around, I willingly gave up my bedroom and moved into the attic on the 3rd floor. Not out of fear, but because I wanted to seize the opportunity presented by the upcoming exams. My past experiences taught me one valuable lesson: true strength lies within. The attic was quiet, as I had it all to myself. Every night, I studied late into the night. Emma and Lucas's little schemes, I pretended not to notice. Finally, the exams were over, and my high scores earned me offers from both Harvard and Stanford. I ultimately chose Stanford. It wasn't until I held the admission letter in my hands that I felt at ease. Standing by the attic window, I let out a long sigh of relief. Now, it was time to settle the scores with Emma, Lucas, and Dad. As I descended the stairs, I spotted Emma nestled in Lucas's arms, laughing shyly. Upon seeing me, Lucas quickly pushed Emma away and walked toward me. "Sophie, there you are. You've been so busy studying lately you haven't had time for me. But now you've got to spend some time with me," he said, reaching out to grab my hand. I stepped back, creating distance between us. "But it seems like you've had someone to keep you company," I said, pointedly glancing at Emma. Lucas's face briefly darkened before he regained his composure and feigned nonchalance. "Sophie, you're imagining things. I'm only close to Emma because she's your cousin." My blunt response made Emma's face turn pale, but I couldn't help smirking in satisfaction. Lucas and I were part of a business alliance between 2 wealthy families, an engagement arranged when we were children. In my past life, I had treated Lucas as my future husband, which made it unbearable when Emma stole him from me. At this point in my previous life, Lucas and Emma had already become inseparable due to my relentless interference. But now, without me as a catalyst, Lucas was still sneaking around with Emma behind my back. While playing along with Lucas could make Emma uncomfortable, it disgusted me even more. How could I end this engagement quickly? As I mulled over my options, an idea struck me. I gazed at Lucas with feigned affection. "Since I'm going to marry you eventually, why don't we just get married now?" Married," Emma exclaimed before Lucas could react. "What's wrong, cousin? Are you unhappy with this? Or perhaps you were hoping to take my place as his bride?" I asked, my words hitting her like a dagger to the heart. Emma's lips trembled, unable to form a response. Lucas's expression turned awkward as well. Clearly, he hadn't had his fill of enjoying the thrill of juggling 2 women at once. I decided to stoke the fire further. "Lucas, I've been admitted to Stanford. I bet your mom would be thrilled to hear the news. You really got into Stanford? Lucas's eyes lit up. When I nodded, his face broke into a delighted grin. Wait here, I'm going to tell my mom right now. The Zhang family had made their fortune in coal mining years ago. Although the coal business had declined, their wealth remained intact, and they had diversified into other investments. Despite their financial success, none of them had achieved much in education. Lucas was the most educated, having graduated high school but never attending college. As a result, the Zhang family often faced ridicule for being nouveau rich without substance. They loved flaunting their wealth to compensate for what they lacked. Wherever Lucas's mom went, she would proudly boast about my academic achievements. Now that I had been accepted into Harvard, she was surely hoping I could marry into their family soon. Barely had Lucas stepped out of my house when Emma couldn't hold back anymore. Clutching her stomach, she knelt before me. Sophie, I'm so sorry, I'm pregnant with Lucas's child. I know, I replied. After all, the condoms Lucas and Emma used were ones I had secretly poked holes in beforehand. My firm words silenced Emma's sobbing. How do you know? I curled my lips into a smirk without answering, turned around, and headed upstairs. It looked like there was a tough battle ahead this afternoon. I needed to rest and gather my energy for it. The violent knocking at my door woke me up. Bang, bang, bang. Following that, I heard Dad's irritable voice from outside. Locking the door even when you're at home? All you do is study or sleep. Am I raising a pig here? Can't you learn something from your cousin? She wakes up early every day to make breakfast, and frowning, I walked straight to the door and opened it. Seeing my emotionless face, Dad's endless nagging came to an abrupt halt, but soon his expression turned angry. You insolent girl, how dare you look at me like that? He roared, raising his hand to slap me. I quickly darted downstairs, leaving him swiping at empty air. Downstairs, Lucas's parents and Lucas himself were all laughing jovially. Their smiles grew even wider when they saw me. Meanwhile, Emma, who was serving tea and water on the side, had tears in her eyes. It seemed Lucas's family still didn't know about Emma's pregnancy. Tusk, and here I thought Emma was so capable. Turns out this matter still required me to blow it wide open. Uncle, Auntie. I greeted Lucas's mom as I walked up to her. Her eyes immediately landed on the Harvard acceptance letter in my hand. She took it and examined it over and over again, her face glowing with satisfaction. Then she handed the letter to Lucas's dad and grabbed my hand. Our Sophie is just outstanding. Auntie absolutely adores you. When Dad came downstairs, she eagerly turned to him and said, In-law, Lucas is in his 20s now, and Sophie is already an adult. Why don't we have the wedding first and register the marriage later? What do you think? Since their family was more powerful than ours, Dad momentarily put aside his dissatisfaction with me and forced a smile. Of course, that sounds wonderful. Well then, when do you think we should set the date? Watching Lucas's parents and my dad start discussing my wedding date with Lucas, I couldn't help but find it laughable. Mom was still at the office and hadn't returned, yet they were blatantly disregarding her. I glanced at Emma, whose gaze was fixed intently on Lucas. Normally, Lucas couldn't resist Emma's smiles, but now he sat upright, completely ignoring her subtle signals. Tusk in the face of personal interests, their so-called love seemed utterly insignificant. How about next month? We can hold the wedding before Sophie starts school, Lucas's dad suggested. I think that works. As soon as the three of them reached an agreement, I spoke up. Uncle, Auntie, I really want to marry Lucas, but... I trailed off, fixing Emma with an accusing look and speaking in an aggrieved tone. But she secretly seduced Lucas and is even pregnant with his child. My words shocked everyone in the room. Sophie, you must be mistaken. She's your cousin. I wish I were mistaken. But not long ago, she confessed it to me herself, I said. The eye drops I had applied earlier finally came into play as tears rolled down my cheeks. I lowered my head, pretending to cry, while sneaking glances at Emma. In the Sue family, there were 3 brothers. Only my dad had managed to go to college and marry my mom. Using my mom's family's influence, he had established the Sue Corporation. However, the company's primary decision-maker was my mom, whereas Dad was merely a figurehead CEO. Although Dad had secretly assisted his brothers financially, their families still couldn't compare to ours. Emma had envied me since we were children. Now that I had laid everything out in the open, if Emma didn't seize this opportunity to marry into a wealthy family, even I would look down on her. Thankfully, she didn't let me down this time. Under everyone's gaze, Emma knelt before Lucas's parents. Uncle, Auntie, Lucas and I are truly in love. Before Lucas's parents could react, Lucas stood up hastily. I used protection. How could you possibly be pregnant? His words confirmed everything. Lucas, I don't know how this happened. Didn't you say you didn't even like Sophie? That she was dull and boring, and that you'd eventually break off the engagement to be with me? You even said, "Shut up," Lucas interrupted, slapping Emma hard across the face. The next second, Lucas's dad kicked him in the stomach. "You wretched fool, you've disgraced the entire family. Why are you hitting our son?" Lucas's mom exclaimed indignantly. "It's clearly this tramp Emma who seduced him. If anyone deserves to be hit, it's her." With that, she grabbed Emma by the hair. Dad hurried to intervene, but Lucas's mom, now furious, even took a swipe at Dad. Afraid of getting scratched, Dad took a step back, and then Emma was pinned to the ground by Mrs. Zhang, who began hitting her. Unable to dodge, Emma suddenly clutched her stomach. "The baby, my baby." A streak of crimson flowed from between Emma's legs onto the floor. Terrified of being held accountable for a life, Mrs. Zhang immediately stopped and called 911. Half an hour later, Emma was carried into an ambulance. Mr. and Mrs. Zhang, Lucas, and Dad all hurriedly followed. I sat on the living room sofa, watching the figures heading toward the door, a cold smirk curling at my lips. Just then, a dark gaze landed on me. It was Dad. He suddenly turned his head and caught the smile on my face. Instinctively, I straightened my expression, but soon realized I was no longer the timid, powerless person I had been in my previous life. I lifted my head and gave Dad a brazen smile. For the first time, he saw defiance in my eyes, and anger surged within him, as if he was about to come back and confront me. However, the waiting ambulance outside wouldn't allow for delays, so he had no choice but to get in and leave. Not long after the ambulance departed, Mom returned. She wore a fitted business suit, her hair neatly tied up. Though in her 40s, with fine lines at the corners of her eyes, she still exuded charm. But her slightly disheveled hair suggested she had rushed back in a hurry. "Sophie, Mrs. Davis told me something happened. What's going on?" Busy with her career, her tone carried a certain sternness, but her eyes were full of concern. Unfortunately, this concern was something I had failed to notice in my previous life. Back then, I never considered whether Mom worked so hard for my sake. I merely thought she cared only about her job and money and didn't love me. I grew up rebellious, always opposing her. When she eventually gave up her position in the family business and divorced Dad, her only condition was to take me with her. But because I was unwilling to let Emma win, I stubbornly chose to stay with Dad. In the end, disappointed, Mom left everything behind, walking away with nothing and moving abroad. Thinking about it now, my nose started to sting with emotion. "Mom," I threw myself into her arms, hugging her tightly. "Mom, you're finally back." In my previous life, I had rarely been close to Mom. Since my rebirth, we had grown much closer. Yet compared to an ordinary mother-daughter relationship, there was still some distance between us. Mom's body stiffened at first, but then she relaxed. Awkwardly, she patted my back. "Sophie, have you been wronged?" "Yes." I nodded and told her everything that had happened today. Lucas and Emma, secretly seeing each other, and there's a baby involved. Unbelievable, Mom's anger flared. "I'm going to confront them right now. The Zhang family and your father's family owe us an explanation." With that, Mom grabbed my hand and headed out the door. She drove us straight to the hospital. When we arrived, Emma was lying weakly in a hospital bed. Mr. and Mrs. Zhang, Lucas, and Dad were all in the room. The other three looked grim, but Dad was fawning over Emma with concern. "Emmy, does it hurt? Are you hungry? If you're uncomfortable, just tell me, okay?" "My baby." Emma sobbed, clutching her stomach. Dad's tone grew even gentler. "The baby is fine. Right now, you just need to focus on recovering. Don't worry about anything else." "Thank you, Uncle." Mom couldn't take it anymore. She pushed the door open and walked in, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "You were never this attentive with Sophie. Anyone who didn't know better would think Emma isn't your niece, but your illegitimate daughter." Mom was practically saying everything I wanted to say. Unsurprisingly, Dad was furious. With little competence in his career, he always made up for it by being more domineering in his temper compared to Mom. "Olivia, what nonsense are you spouting now?" I had seen this side of Dad countless times. But this time, I caught something new in his expression, a hint of guilt I had never noticed before. I glanced at Dad, then at Emma lying on the bed. A bold thought began to take shape in my mind. Nonsense. Emma dared to steal Sophie's fiancé, and you're still defending her. Do you even care about us at all? Emma's just young and naive. Besides, she isn't an outsider, she's my niece. Seeing that the two were about to erupt into a full-blown argument, I quickly tugged on Mom's hand. Mom. Mom took a deep breath, reining in her anger at Dad, and turned her attention to Mr. and Mrs. Zhang. The couple, who had been quietly watching the scene unfold, suddenly stiffened. "Mrs. Davis, don't call me that." Mom cut them off coldly. "Since your son can't behave himself, this engagement is off." Before Mr. and Mrs. Zhang could respond, Dad jumped in anxiously. Calling it off would be such a waste. Why not let Emma take Soph's place and marry Luca's instead? Absolutely not, Mrs. Zhang's eyes widened in outrage. Sophie got into Harvard, and Emma, who knows what kind of third-rate college she attended. She's from the countryside. Our family would never accept a daughter-in-law like that. If you ask me, Emma should terminate the pregnancy, go back to her village, and we can all pretend this never happened. You can't let one disgraceful person ruin the harmony between our families, right, Olivia? Lucas's mother looked at Mom. Mom glanced at Dad's furious face. She gently patted my hand to comfort me before speaking calmly. That might not be entirely impossible. Seeing Mom relent, Lucas's mother heaved a massive sigh of relief. "Since that's the case, I'll have the doctor prepare for the abortion procedure right away," she said, turning to make the arrangements. Suddenly, Emma, who had been lying weakly on the hospital bed and barely able to speak, sprang up, ran over, and clung to Lucas's leg. "Luke, do you really have the heart to do this to me? Boo-hoo!" she cried miserably, her tears streaming down her face like a tragic heroine. Lucas's face showed hesitation. Witnessing this, Lucas's mother became furious. "You shameless girl, stop touching my son," she yelled, stepping forward to yank Emma away. Just then, two figures burst into the room. "How dare you bully my daughter? I'll fight you to the death." It was Emma's parents. They had just been informed and rushed over. Upon seeing their daughter being mistreated, they immediately shoved Lucas's mother aside and began hitting her. Lucas's father joined the fray, but Emma's parents, accustomed to hard farm labor, were much stronger. Lucas's parents were no match for them. Seeing his parents being beaten so badly, Lucas charged in to defend them. Soon, all 6 of them were entangled in a chaotic scuffle on the floor. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. My laugh caught Dad's attention. He stormed over to me, his face livid with rage. "Sophia, you've gone too far. If it weren't for you, how could things have escalated to this point?" "Me. What does this have to do with me? Isn't Emma the one who brought this upon herself?" "Shut up, I won't." "What's the matter? Could it really be like Mom said, that Emma isn't your niece but your illegitimate daughter?" As soon as my words fell, Dad's face turned an even darker shade of purple. "Nonsense today, I'll make sure to teach you a lesson." He raised his hand to slap me. Mom instinctively shielded me behind her. "You dare? Why wouldn't I? Olivia, if you try to stop me, I'll hit you too." A cold, mocking voice echoed from outside the hospital room. Hilarious. It's my first time seeing a father so determined to destroy his own daughter. I turned around and saw a face that was both unfamiliar and oddly familiar. The boy's features were sharp and well-defined, strikingly handsome. The scratches on his face and the blood on his lips didn't detract from his looks, but instead added a touch of captivating allure. However, his eyes were filled with hostility, carrying a palpable sense of danger. It was Ethan, my high school classmate. Since graduating high school, I hadn't seen many of my classmates. The reason his face felt familiar was that I had met him once before my rebirth. At that time, I was walking home from work when 2 men tried to stop me. Ethan had appeared in a luxury car, honked his horn, and scared them away. I had thanked him, and he replied, "No need to thank me, old classmate." Only then did I dredge up fragmented memories of him from the depths of my mind. While expressing my gratitude, I had also felt a bit embarrassed. My high school classmate was doing so well, while I, pulling myself back from those wandering thoughts, I looked at him again. He didn't seem as composed as he had been before my rebirth, appearing much younger and less mature, but still as handsome as ever. You think you have the right to meddle in my family's affairs, you brat? Today, I'll teach my daughter a lesson. Dad, with his inflated ego, couldn't bear the insult and became even more enraged. He rolled up his sleeves, ready to hit me. Mom continued to shield me, but his hand showed no signs of stopping. He really intended to hit both of us. I reached out to block Dad's hand, but someone beat me to it. A hand grabbed Dad's arm firmly. It was Ethan. Enraged, Dad tried to lash out at Ethan as well, but Ethan's grip on his arm was so strong that he couldn't move. The two stood face to face, Ethan looking relaxed, while Dad's face turned an alarming shade of red. Finally, hospital staff noticed the commotion and rushed in to break it up. Dad used the opportunity to retract his hand and turned his attention to Emma. I turned to thank Ethan, but he had already walked away. At the far end of the long corridor, his figure seemed lonely and isolated. Half an hour later, after being calmed down by hospital staff, everyone begrudgingly settled down. Except for Dad, who feigned concern for Emma while actually staying detached, everyone else looked disheveled and beaten. Lucas's family held their heads high, brimming with arrogance. Emma's parents, on the other hand, hung their heads low, filled with unease. Their greatest dream was to have Emma marry into a wealthy family. Just now, they had pinned that wealthy family to the ground and beaten them. The baby in Emma's belly must be aborted, Lucas's father roared furiously. Lucas's mother chimed in, I'd rather die than let Emma marry my son. That's unacceptable, Emma's father protested. Your son got my daughter pregnant. If you refuse to take responsibility, we'll cause a scene at your company and let the public judge. Emma's father's words made Lucas's parents' faces darken. 20,000. That's a human life we're talking about. You think 20,000 is enough to buy a life? You people, Olivia's words were cut off by William, who was growing impatient. Fine, 50,000 this time. Before his voice even fully faded, William and Mom eagerly nodded. Deal. On the hospital bed, Emma broke down crying and fainted. And yes, she really passed out. Unfortunately, even fainting wasn't enough to escape her fate on the operating table. After wrapping up the negotiations with William's family, Lucas's exhausted parents turned toward Mom. Sophia, once Emma's pregnancy is terminated, how about we plan for Luke to marry Soph? Mom's eyes flickered with a hint of calculation. Well, that depends on how your Luke behaves from now on. Don't worry, if Luke ever acts out of line, I'll break his legs myself, declared Lucas's mother, yanking him closer. Luke, barely paying attention, gave a half-hearted nod of agreement while his gaze kept darting in the direction Emma had been wheeled away. Without engaging further, Mom grabbed my arm and led me out of the hospital. On the drive home, she asked, keeping her eyes on the road, what's your take on the marriage arrangement with Lucas? That scumbag, I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. Just thinking about Luke filled me with a visceral disgust. Cheating, cowardice, and a complete lack of responsibility, there wasn't a single redeeming quality about him. In my past life, I must have been completely brainwashed to even think of competing with Emma over that pile of garbage. My reply seemed to ease the tension in Mom's brows just a bit. So, what's your plan now? I want to call off the engagement with Lucas. Sure, dragging things out might cause more emotional damage to both Lucas and Emma, but just hearing people associate me with the title of Luke's fiancé made my skin crawl. Mom, if Emma loses the baby, wouldn't the Lucas family just cling to me even harder? I shared my concerns with her. Mom gave me a reassuring smile. Don't worry, leave it to me. Once we got home, Mom immediately called Lucas's mother. Olivia, has Emma had the procedure done yet? Not yet. The doctor said they need to wait until she wakes up and assess her condition. Honestly, I think that little tramp is just faking it. Exactly any woman who could seduce her own sister's boyfriend can't be a decent person. Olivia, don't go soft at the last minute. It's not like your Luke can't have kids in the future. Once he marries Sophie, they can have 10 or even 12 children. After hanging up the phone, Mom turned to me. Before I could even ask, she explained, Lucas is an only child. Apparently, his parents went through a lot of trouble to have him because William has some issues in that department. So, you think Lucas's parents might reconsider forcing Emma to terminate the pregnancy for the sake of having a grandchild? My eyes lit up with understanding. Mom gently tapped my forehead with a smile. Smart girl. If that's the case, the Lucas family won't have the nerve to pester us anymore. And even if Emma does have the child, they'll never accept her as part of the family. Hearing this, I couldn't help but look at Mom with a newfound sense of admiration. Mom, you're amazing, she chuckled, pulling me into a warm hug and stroking my hair. My darling daughter, no one has the right to bully you. Feeling her embrace, a lump formed in my throat and my eyes stung with unshed tears. She had said the same thing to me in my past life. How had I responded back then? I said, if you really don't want me to be hurt, you should help me win Lucas back. But Sophie, Lucas isn't worth it. I don't care if he's worth it or not, I love him. I had been like a woman possessed, my sole obsession being to separate Emma from Lucas. Unable to dissuade me, Mom had swallowed her pride to beg Lucas's parents on my behalf, only to be ridiculed by them. Of course, they had every reason to look down on her. Lucas had treated me so terribly, and yet I still refused to let go. With a daughter like me, how could Mom have earned anyone's respect? Sophie, are you okay? Sensing my emotional turmoil, Mom's voice was full of concern. I buried my face in her arms, my voice muffled. Mom, I don't think Dad deserves to be my father. It had always felt like there was a distance between Dad and me, just as there was between him and Mom. While Mom worked hard to support our family, Dad squandered her earnings to show off and pretend to be someone he wasn't. Looking back now, their relationship had probably been strained for a long time. Only for my sake had Mom chosen to endure it, but now I saw the truth clearly. A father who didn't care about me wasn't someone I needed in my life. I wished Mom would divorce Dad, but she didn't. She just held me tightly and let out a long sigh. Though I was a little disappointed, I understood. After all, in my previous life, Mom hadn't asked for a divorce until a year later, when I was already on the verge of a breakdown thanks to Lucas, Emma, and Dad. Only then, when she had completely lost faith in him, did she decide to leave and take me with her. For now, my father hadn't done anything unforgivable other than siding with Emma. As much as I wanted to be rid of him sooner, I knew some things couldn't be rushed. That afternoon, Mom left to arrange my graduation party. I gathered all the household staff and gave them a single instruction: throw out all of Emma's belongings. Yes, Miss Sophie. I had tolerated Emma's presence in my home for the sake of my studies, but those days were over. From now on, I wouldn't give anyone the chance to hurt me ever again. After Emma's belongings were completely thrown out, the housekeeper cleaned my room thoroughly, allowing me to move back from the attic. That evening, Mom came home first, followed closely by Dad. Seeing us, his usual arrogant demeanor was noticeably absent, replaced by a slightly sheepish look. He walked up to Mom and held her hand, saying, "I lost my temper at the hospital earlier today. Please don't be mad at me." Normally, even when Dad knew he was at fault, he would never apologize. This time, he was definitely up to something. Mom pulled her hand away, her expression indifferent. "Judging by the way you're acting, I assume you didn't convince Emma to get rid of the baby?" Caught red-handed, Dad looked a bit embarrassed. Lucas underwent some tests, and it turns out he has low sperm count. It might be difficult for him to have children in the future. This is really the only option left. And Mom stared at Dad with unwavering eyes. Faced with Mom's calm demeanor, Dad's initial guilt quickly turned into anger. It's Sophie's fault for not being likable enough to win Lucas over. Since Emmy is already pregnant with his child, this engagement might as well go to her. Mom wasn't one to back down. Her face darkened on the spot. "William, I don't care about this engagement, but what do you mean by saying Sophie isn't likable? In your eyes, is your niece Emma the most charming person in the world? Oh, isn't she?" Dad slammed the table and stood up, pointing at me. "Just look at her always acting as if I owe her millions of dollars. How is that endearing? Unlike Emmy, who brings me tea, shows concern for me, and even." "Shut your mouth," Mom's chest heaved with anger. Worried that she might hurt herself, I quickly stepped forward to calm her down. "Mom, let's not get worked up. It's okay if Dad doesn't care about me. At least I still have you." Mom noticed my concern and took a deep breath, trying to suppress her anger. Ignoring William completely, she pulled me by the hand and led me upstairs. Once we were upstairs, she looked at me and hesitated to speak, as if struggling to find the right words. I held her hand firmly. Mom, to me, I don't have a father. From childhood until now, Dad has never cared about me. He's never looked after me, never attended a parent-teacher meeting, never been involved in any part of my life. He doesn't love me. In fact, he seems to despise me. But he treats Emma differently. Around her, he actually acts like a father. Sometimes, I even feel. Thinking about the suspicion that had been lurking in my heart, I bit my lip and continued, I feel like Emma is his real daughter, and I'm just a burden who's taken her rightful place. Sophie, Mom exclaimed, startled by my words. I can assure you you're your father's child. As for Emma, your father is selfish. He's always wanted to exploit me to support his two brothers. In his bones, he feels he and his brothers are one family, while I'm an outsider. He places you on the same level as me, which is why he treats you the way he does. I promise you, Emma is not your father's child. Don't worry. If he doesn't care about you, I'll love you twice as much. Hearing her words, I nodded and decided not to dwell on the matter anymore. Instead, I changed the subject. So Dad's plan is to have Emma marry Lucas, and Lucas's parents are okay with this just because she's pregnant? If that's the case, Emma is getting off way too easily. Of course not. I know Lucas's parents too well. They're likely planning to have Emma secretly deliver the baby, then hand the child over to you and Lucas to raise. They sent your dad to convince me to agree to this arrangement. But there's no way your dad would let his precious niece suffer that kind of humiliation. So this time, he's here to ask me to persuade Lucas's parents to let Emma marry into their family. After our argument just now, though, he probably won't dare to broach the topic again. Hearing Mom's explanation, I couldn't help but give her a thumbs up. Mom, you're amazing. Of course, she replied, her face full of pride. Your graduation party is in 3 days. I'll text you the hotel details later. For now, focus on inviting your classmates to join the celebration. Leave everything else to me. At the party, I'll publicly announce the cancellation of your engagement to Lucas. Got it, Mom. Back in my room, I was still a bit puzzled. Mom was even more capable than I had imagined. She was so confident that Emma wasn't Dad's child. Could it be that my suspicion was really just a misunderstanding? Shaking my head, I decided to set the matter aside for now. I pulled out my phone and started sending invitations to my close friends for the graduation party. While sending out the last few invitations, I thought of Ethan. He was one of my classmates. Back in high school, my impression of him was rather vague. I remembered him always sitting in the last row of the classroom. During lessons, he was either sleeping or playing on his phone, and the teachers didn't bother trying to discipline him. He often got into fights and was frequently called into the principal's office along with his parents. He was the epitome of a rebellious student. Yet, because he was handsome, his desk drawer was perpetually stuffed with love letters. He never touched those letters, though. Instead, he periodically threw them all into the trash. My interactions with him were pitifully few, yet in both my past and present lives, Ethan had helped me twice. After hesitating for a moment, I decided to send him a message. Since we weren't particularly close, my tone was polite. 3 days from now is my graduation party. Do you happen to have time? To my surprise, he replied quickly, with just one word. Sure. Several close friends, regardless of how well they did on their exams, were hosting their own graduation parties around the same time. On the day of my party, I got ready to head out. While sitting on the couch, Dad looked me up and down, his gaze sharp. Soph, what is it? I asked coolly. Frowning with displeasure, he spoke. Your cousin is still in the hospital recovering, yet you're in the mood to go out and have fun. By that logic, since my cousin is still lying in a hospital bed, why are you in the mood to sit at home drinking tea? Shouldn't you be at her bedside, never leaving her side? My blunt retort made Dad's face darken. I stayed up late last night and couldn't manage today, he muttered defensively. Oh, I was too eager to leave to waste time arguing further. As I reached the door, Dad's voice rang out again. Make sure you find time to visit your cousin. He probably didn't care about me visiting Emma. He just wanted her to manipulate me into doing what they wanted. Ignoring his words, I walked away without looking back. After attending my friend's graduation party, I asked the driver to take a detour to the hospital on the way home. When I arrived at Emma's hospital room, she was sitting up in bed, eating fruit fed to her by William and Olivia. Our Emmy is truly remarkable. It seems like she's destined to marry into a wealthy family. What's the point of Sophia being good at studying? She couldn't even keep a man. When you marry Lucas, make sure your uncle gives you a generous dowry. The three of them were calculating furiously, as if they were planning their next move. I chose the perfect moment to push the door open and step inside. But Lucas's mom just called me. She told me there's no way Lucas will marry Emma. Once she gives birth, they'll send her back to the countryside. My words made the expressions of everyone in the room change drastically. "Soph," Olivia began, her smug demeanor replaced by an expression of anguish. "At this point, even if you marry Lucas, you'd only get his body, not his heart." Olivia's face grew more sorrowful, while Emma was already sobbing. "Sophie, for the sake of me being your sister, can you let me go?" William's attitude remained firm. "Soph, even if you refuse to cancel the engagement with Lucas, your father will find a way to make Emma marry him. The one who will end up embarrassed will be you." The three of them were perfectly coordinated, switching between soft pleas and hard threats. If I were still the kind, timid person I was in my past life, I might have believed this was somehow my fault. But now, what do you mean by asking me to let you go? Emma shamelessly seduced my fiancé and got pregnant with his child. It's my misfortune to have any connection with people like you. I'll tell you this, Emma. No matter what tricks you try, I won't back out of my engagement with Lucas. Go ahead and have the baby. When the time comes, your child will call me Mom, while you'll remain in the shadows, nothing more than an aunt at best. My words rendered everyone in the room speechless. Just then, the nurse bringing food accidentally dropped a bowl, causing it to shatter. "I'm so sorry, I'm so clumsy," she stammered, hurriedly trying to pick up the ceramic shards. In the process, she accidentally cut her hand. Unable to watch any longer, I stepped forward. "Let me do it." I crouched down and picked up the broken pieces. Once I was done, I stood up, intending to throw them in the trash. As I raised my eyes, my gaze landed on the nurse's face, and I couldn't look away. She looked so much like Emma. The suspicion I had buried deep inside began to resurface. Noticing me staring at her, the nurse quickly lowered her head. "Thank you." "No problem," I said, giving her shoulder a reassuring pat. As I did, I discreetly plucked a strand of hair from her head. Leaving the hospital room, I encountered Lucas in the hallway. He was visibly excited. "Sophie, this is great you don't mind Emma having my child and are even willing to be the child's mom. Don't worry, I'll treat you well in the future." He looked at me with eyes full of affection. Clearly, he had overheard my words in the hospital room earlier. I was practically revolted. In my last life, how blind must I have been to feel resentful when Emma stole someone like him from me? What about Emma? I asked deliberately, raising my voice. "Once she gives birth, we'll give her some money and send her away," Lucas replied casually. From inside the room came gasps of shock following Lucas's declaration. Emma fainted again. Whether she was genuinely unconscious or faking it, I couldn't care less. I stared at Lucas with an expressionless face. What I just said was only to provoke Emma. From the moment you started getting involved with her, we had nothing to do with each other. Do me a favor and relay this to your parents when you get back, so they'll stop going around telling people I'm their future daughter-in-law. It's honestly embarrassing to be associated with people like you. After saying all this, I ignored Lucas's reaction and walked away. The day before my college acceptance celebration, Mom and I had just returned home after picking out my dress. To my surprise, Emma and her parents were at our house. The three of them were sprawled on the couch, snacking on sunflower seeds and watching TV. The living room was a mess, shells and spilled tea covered the floor. "What are you doing here?" I asked them coldly. William leaned further into the couch and replied, "Soph said something earlier, aren't we family? Emmy just got discharged from the hospital. It's inconvenient for her to move around too much, so where else would she stay?" At that moment, a servant came downstairs carrying some belongings. I recognized them immediately. They were things from my room. Emma noticed my gaze and innocently said, "Sophie, Uncle said I need a good environment to recover, so I hope you don't mind moving to the attic or the guest room." Unbelievable. They had taken over my room without even asking. I was furious and about to speak when Mom stepped in ahead of me. "Security, get these three out of here. You wouldn't dare. Do you know who I am? I'm the older brother of your estate's owner. If you dare lay a finger on me, I'll make sure all of you are fired," William shouted, trying to intimidate us. but the security guards didn't pay him any attention. After all, this estate had been a wedding gift from my grandparents to Mom. The three of them were thrown out and ended up sitting at the gate of our villa, cursing loudly. I spoke calmly, "Keep shouting, and I'll call the police." As I said this, I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. Instantly, they fell silent. Grabbing their meager belongings, they left. "Emma," I called out to her just as she was leaving. "What do you want now?" Her pretenses dropped, and she looked at me with a mix of hatred and wariness, clutching her stomach protectively. "Don't even think about harming my child." I chuckled coldly. "Relying on a child alone won't get you into the Lucas family. The Lucas family values their reputation above all else. The only way they might accept you is if the news of your pregnancy becomes public knowledge. Why are you being so generous all of a sudden?" Emma's expression turned hopeful, but her brief naivety didn't last long. She quickly realized my intentions. "Sophia, you're doing this on purpose. You want to drag the Lucas family down with me." "Yes, I'm doing this on purpose. The opportunity is yours, take it or leave it." Not long after William and his family left, Dad returned home. What followed was an unprecedented argument between him and Mom. Because of me, because of Emma. Their fight started with Emma's involvement with Lucas and spiraled into years of unresolved issues. Dad accused Mom of always overshadowing him with her ability to earn money, making him feel like less of a man. Mom, on the other hand, was livid not just because of the injustice I'd suffered, but also because of years of emotional neglect from Dad. For the first time, the always composed and graceful Mom broke down completely. "William, you're pathetic, useless, and a chauvinist. You don't protect your wife or your child. You're heartless, cruel, and blind. Olivia, you're asking for it." Dad raised his hand to strike Mom, but his hand never landed. It was stopped mid-air by a security guard. "Beat William to a pulp. The harsher, the bigger the bonus." What followed were screams of agony from Dad echoing through the living room. I'd wanted to do this for a long time. In my previous life, even though I only managed to attend a technical college, I could have worked hard and built a decent life for myself. But William, Emma, and Lucas ruined everything. No matter what job I found, they used their influence to sabotage my efforts. My tragic past life wasn't entirely without blame. I had made foolish choices. But I had never done anything truly wrong. It was them. They kept pushing me to the brink. From the moment I was reborn, I swore I'd make William pay. Yet now that it was happening, I didn't feel the satisfaction I'd imagined. Because of Mom, Mom's face was filled with pain. "Mom," I approached her cautiously, holding her hand gently. "I'm fine," she forced a smile to reassure me. When Dad was finally beaten to the point where he couldn't make a sound, Mom instructed the security guards to stop. Though he was let off, I still felt unsatisfied. Mom patted my hand soothingly. "Tomorrow is your college acceptance celebration. It wouldn't be good to make a bigger scene." And with that, I said no more. William was sent to the hospital, and Mom ensured someone was stationed at the door to keep watch. That night, the lights in Mom's room stayed on until morning. Unable to put my mind at ease, I walked to Mom's bedroom door and saw her inside, taking out photos of her and Dad one by one. First, she looked at them, reminiscing about the past, and then she ripped them apart with force. Indeed, I had only seen the bad side of Dad but failed to recognize everything he and Mom had gone through together. Noticing my presence, Mom gestured for me to come over. I walked in and nestled in her arms. Her voice came from above, gentle yet firm. "Back when I decided to marry your dad, your grandparents were against it. They said he came from a poor background and lacked ability. But I fell for his sweet words and stubbornly insisted on marrying him. Now, looking back, it seems I really made the wrong choice. Mom, everyone makes wrong choices in life. As long as we recognize and correct them in time, that's all that matters. Besides," I lifted my head to look at her. "Besides, if you hadn't been with Dad, maybe you wouldn't have had such a smart and charming daughter like me." My playful words successfully brought a smile to her face. She looked at me and asked seriously, "Sophie, if I were to divorce your dad, would you be okay with it?" "I would." "And would you choose to stay with me?" "I would." This time, my reply was firm and unwavering. Perhaps my answer gave her the courage she needed, as her face regained its confidence. "After your graduation party tomorrow, I'll bring it up with him." "All right." I hugged Mom and stayed with her until she fell asleep. When her breathing steadied, I quietly got up. Searching her pillow, I found one of Dad's short hairs and took it out of the room. Early the next morning, I made an excuse to go out, heading to the hospital to collect Emma's hair. Then, I submitted parentage tests, pairing Emma's hair with Dad's and Emma's hair with that of the woman who delivered meals to Dad. After returning home, Mom and I left together for the hotel. By midday, guests began to arrive steadily. Although Dad was supposed to be recovering at the hospital, he made an effort to show up at my graduation party. I worried he might cause a scene, but Mom assured me that Dad's vanity wouldn't allow it. That put me at ease. As Mom predicted, Dad, who usually couldn't be bothered to even glance at me, was now smiling broadly. His grin was so wide that even the bandages on his face couldn't hide it. "William, your daughter is truly impressive. Of course, she takes after me." Someone noticed his injuries and asked with concern, "What happened? How did you get hurt so badly?" A shadow flickered in his eyes, but his smile remained bright. "Oh, it's nothing. I was so happy about my daughter getting into Harvard that I drank a little too much and ended up taking a tumble." Hearing this, Mom and I exchanged a glance, struggling to hold back laughter. You had to admit his ability to spin a story was unparalleled. Guests continued arriving wave after wave. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Mom's long-awaited moment came. My grandparents arrived. Back when Mom insisted on marrying Dad, they had been furious. Although they secretly supported her career over the years, they hardly interacted with her openly. Every visit Mom made to see them was met with cold faces. The only exception was me when it came to me. They were all smiles. But I knew this was simply their way of showing concern for Mom through me, loving me because they loved her. "Mom, Dad, you finally made it," Mom sighed in relief. My grandparents responded with mock arrogance. "If it wasn't for Sophie's graduation party, we wouldn't have come." Yes, let me take you inside." Mom went to help them in. My classmates had also arrived, as had the Lucas family and Emma's family. By midday, nearly all the guests were present, but I still hadn't seen Ethan. Only then did I realize how impulsive I'd been. I had no idea about Ethan's academic performance or which university he'd gotten into, yet I'd invited him anyway. Just as I was pondering this, a familiar voice came from above. "Excuse me, where should I sit?" Looking up, I met Ethan's captivating gaze. "Let me show you," I said, unable to stop the smile that spread across my face. I led Ethan to the table where my high school classmates were seated. Upon seeing him, the girls who had been chatting suddenly fell silent, their cheeks turning red. "Sophie, you're amazing. Even our school's most elusive heartthrob came because of you." I simply smiled in response, choosing not to comment. The Sue family's corporation was sizable, and most of the guests at my graduation party were business associates. I followed Mom and Dad, making rounds to toast the guests. When we reached the table where the Lucas family was seated, someone raised a question. "Why are your in-laws sitting with us?" Mom smiled and explained, "Well, Sophie and Luke's engagement has been canceled. It was never more than a light-hearted joke from years ago and wasn't meant to be taken seriously." The guests were sharp and didn't probe further. However, Lucas's parents were visibly upset. Still, they chose to hold their tongues. Mom wanted to leave the Lucas family with some dignity, but I didn't. Trying to walk away gracefully after doing something disgraceful, where in the world does it work like that? I turned to Emma, who was clutching her stomach, her expression filled with turmoil as if she was debating whether to reveal on the spot that she was pregnant with Lucas's child. Deciding to take matters into my own hands, I started walking toward Lucas, who was standing not far away. Halfway there, my foot twisted unexpectedly, and I stumbled forward. Directly in front of me was Emma. Just as I was about to fall onto her, I felt a firm grip around my waist. It was Ethan. He had caught me. "Thank you," I said as I steadied myself in his arms. Emma, still shaken, suddenly snapped. She stood up from her chair, pointing at me with an accusatory tone. "Sophia, you did that on purpose. You can't stand that I'm pregnant with Lucas's child, and were trying to harm my baby." Her words sent shockwaves through the crowd. It suddenly became clear to everyone why Lucas and I had called off our engagement. He had been involved with my cousin, Emma, and now she was pregnant. The onlookers, many of whom held their reputations dear, turned to Lucas's family with contempt. Lucas's parents, who were always so concerned about appearances, immediately denied Emma's claim. "Emma, what nonsense are you spouting? Our Lucas is not someone you can just get involved with as you please," Lucas's mother retorted. At this point, Emma decided to burn all her bridges. "Auntie, you and I both know the truth. If you won't admit it now, we can always do a paternity test after the baby is born." "You wretched girl, I'll tear that mouth of yours apart," Lucas's mother shrieked, lunging toward Emma. As Lucas's family and Emma's parents started to clash, Mom had enough and ordered the security guards to throw both families out. The room finally settled into an uneasy calm. The guests began to look at me with a mixture of sympathy and pity. Everyone except Dad, that is. His face was dark with rage, his glare cutting into me like a knife. After the graduation party ended, we returned home, and Dad exploded. "You and your mother are so cruel. Emma is already pitiful enough, pregnant with Lucas's child and not accepted by his family. Do you have to push her to the brink? But isn't this exactly what she deserves?" I replied coldly. "Sophia, don't think I won't discipline you," Dad roared, storming toward me. The security guards quickly formed a protective barrier around me. "If you're so eager to end up in the hospital again, go ahead," I said, my tone icy. You are nothing but trouble. Enough," Mom finally snapped, cutting him off. "William, let's get a divorce." "A divorce? Olivia, are you joking?" Dad's voice was filled with shock and derision. Clearly, in his mind, no matter how he treated Mom and me, she would never leave him. "Yes, a divorce," Mom said firmly. After a moment of stunned silence, Dad sneered. "Fine, but I want half of everything. Why should you get half? What have you ever contributed to this family besides indulging yourself?" I shot back. Mom, however, remained calm. "All right. I'll have the lawyer draft the papers." "Fine by me," Dad said before storming upstairs. Once he was gone, Mom turned to me and reassured me, "Sophie, now that I've made up my mind, the sooner I cut ties, the better. Money can always be earned back. Besides, no matter what, he's still your father. Giving him some money isn't the end of the world." I couldn't argue with her logic, so I stayed quiet. Seeing that Mom was fine, I told her I was meeting a friend but instead went to the hospital. I prayed my suspicion was wrong. If it was, I'd let William walk away with some money for Mom's sake. At the hospital, I managed to get my hands on the test results. But when I opened the envelope and saw the conclusion, I felt my chest tighten with rage. I was right. Emma was indeed the child of William, and the woman who delivered meals to him at work. I rushed home and handed the results to Mom. Mom, who had been grieving the loss of her decades-long marriage, was consumed with fury when she realized Dad had cheated on her and fathered a child 3 years older than me. But Mom being Mom, she didn't let her anger cloud her judgment. She immediately called my grandparents and told them everything. My grandparents arrived with my 3 uncles in tow. My uncles dragged Dad, who had been napping, out of bed and beat him senseless. Already injured, he was left barely conscious. Then my eldest uncle slammed a divorce agreement in front of him and ordered him to sign. When Dad saw that the agreement stipulated he leave with nothing, he refused. My uncle sneered. "William, think carefully. If you don't sign, I'll charge you with bigamy and have you thrown in jail. And that's not all. From now on, every time I see anyone from your family, I'll make sure they regret it. You'll never have another peaceful day in your life." Realizing that Emma's existence had been exposed, Dad paled and reluctantly signed the papers. And just like that, my parents' marriage was over. From that moment on, he was no longer my father. William was thrown out of the house like the trash he was. "If it weren't for Sophie, I'd have made sure he ended up in prison," one of my uncles fumed. The others nodded in agreement, their anger still simmering. Mom barely had time to grieve before turning around to comfort Grandpa, Grandma, and my uncles. In the end, Grandpa, Grandma, and my uncles insisted on taking Mom and me to live with them for a while, out of concern for us. At Grandpa's house, I felt an unprecedented warmth. It was so comforting that I didn't want to leave. Mom also felt the villa was unlucky and sold it off at a price lower than market value. With over a month left before my semester at Stanford began, Mom asked me, "What's your plan for the time being?" "Mom, I want to intern at a company," I replied. "Clearing out the trash is one thing, but making money is the real deal." I wanted to learn how to manage the family business as soon as possible so I could take over. Hearing my response, Mom smiled lightly and said, "That's exactly what I was thinking." Mom took me shopping for a few sets of business attire. Putting on the professional clothes and tying up my long hair, I saw a confident, bold version of myself in the mirror, no longer the timid girl I had been in my past life. The next day, I went to the company with Mom and witnessed her personally instructing the HR department to fire all the employees William had planted there. It wasn't long before Mom's phone in the CEO's office was ringing off the hook. "Olivia, we're still family after all. William's despicable actions have nothing to do with me. Sophia, I've already cut ties with William. Finding a job nowadays is tough. Could you consider our past relationship and not let me go?" In the face of personal interests, the brotherhood William prided himself on crumbled instantly. Unwilling to waste time, Mom simply blocked all of them. Mom then handed me over to a senior employee at the company, and I had a lot to learn every day. Amidst the busyness, news about the Lucas family and Williams family still reached me, one story after another. It wasn't that I wanted to hear about them, their scandals were simply too plentiful and had become the talk of the town. Emma had publicly announced at my graduation party that she was pregnant with Lucas's child. Upset about the disgrace Emma had brought upon the family, Mr. and Mrs. Lucas forbade Lucas from seeing her again. Yet, whether it was Lucas's deep affection or Emma's cunning ways, Lucas secretly continued his relationship with Emma behind his parents' backs. When Mrs. Lucas accidentally found out, she was so enraged that she ended up hospitalized. Over at the Lucas Group, their despicable actions had caused several major collaborations to fall through, leading to heavy losses. The company's stock price was plummeting daily, and Mr. Lucas was utterly overwhelmed. That wasn't the end of it. Emma hadn't known that she was an illegitimate child all along. When she discovered the woman who brought her meals was her biological mother, she lashed out at William and her mom, calling them shameless. In a fit of rage, she miscarried the baby. With the baby gone, Emma lost any chance of marrying into the Lucas family. Her status in the William family plummeted. No longer acting entitled, she began trying to butter up William again. After all, William still had money. William had signed the divorce papers with Mom so readily back then for two reasons: his fear of going to jail and of my uncles, and the fact that he had a substantial stash of secret funds. But he was accustomed to living a life of luxury, and the prospect of his savings dwindling was unbearable for him. Enticed by Ethan, William became addicted to gambling. Within a month, he had lost several $100,000. Without money to back him up, William could no longer command the flattery and attention of the William family and was eventually kicked out. A former neighbor from the villa mentioned that William, now destitute and disheveled, had tried to find Mom and me at the villa. Unfortunately for him, the villa had long been sold, and he couldn't find us. Listening to discussions about these people's miserable circumstances once again, I found myself indifferent. We were now worlds apart. No matter how their lives turned out, I was determined to keep improving. On Stanford's opening day, Lucas stopped me at the school gate. "Sophie, I've completely cut ties with Emma. We grew up together, childhood sweethearts. Can you forgive me this one time?" The ridiculous part was that I actually saw a hint of genuine affection in Lucas's eyes. Some people are just like that, they take for granted what comes easily, yet long for what they can't have. "Sorry, I don't forgive you," I said coldly. Looking at Lucas for even one more second felt like a waste of life. I walked around him and entered the campus. A familiar figure appeared ahead. It was Ethan. He was holding an acceptance letter, seemingly waiting for me. When he saw me, he walked over and extended an invitation. "Want to go register together?" "Sure," I nodded, walking alongside Ethan. Let the past be the past, and fear not the future. I would become the person I'd always aspired to be. End of the first story. Subscribe to my channel if you like my stories. Don't miss the second exciting story. Story 2. The video of Ethan's current girlfriend showcasing her lazy parenting style went viral across various platforms. At the end of the video, she mocked me with a smile. Women shouldn't be too assertive. Otherwise, men can't handle it, and children won't be raised properly. Later, we both appeared on the same parenting reality show. My daughter's knowledge, talent, and impeccable manners completely outshined her son. Because of my successful parenting approach, I even trended on social media. Netizens remarked, "Lazy parenting clearly doesn't work." One star, Sophia, posted a short video about parenting on her social media, and in just 2 days, the views surpassed 1 billion, with major outlets eagerly reposting it. Sophia's lazy parenting style. Learn parenting from star Sophia. If you want obedient kids, start by being lazy. For a while, she was all the rage. In the video, a remarkably handsome 4 or 5-year-old boy was diligently wiping a table. Sophia reclined on the couch, wearing a face mask and scrolling on her phone. In a sweet voice, she called out, "Finny, can you pour Mommy a glass of water?" The boy immediately put down the cloth, ran to the kitchen, and returned with a cup of water, handing it to her. Then he ran back to continue wiping the table. After finishing with the table, he began mopping the floor, working methodically. Sophia set her phone aside, stretched, and playfully pouted at the boy. "Finny, Mommy's face mask time is up, but I don't feel like moving. Can you help Mommy remove the mask?" The boy once again put down the mop, fetched a bowl of water from the bathroom, carefully peeled off the mask, and meticulously wiped her face clean. Finally, he gave her a kiss on the cheek and softly whispered, "Mommy, you're so beautiful." He couldn't be more obedient or adorable. Sophia kissed his cheek in return and praised him for being such a good boy. Hugging him close, she turned to the camera, her lips curling into a smile. Women shouldn't be too assertive. Otherwise, men can't handle it, and children won't be raised properly. Why exhaust yourself raising kids when you can just take it easy? The comment section exploded with activity. "So handsome and well-behaved, I'm so jealous. Can we form a team to steal this kid? Learning so much from this, I'm going to start lazing around too. Ha ha ha, is that last line a jab at someone?" Tagging Lily here. "Lily, come take a look at why you're losing out to our star Sophia, washed-up actress. Don't try to butt in." Such bad vibes, why were they all talking about me? Because Sophia is my ex-husband Ethan's current girlfriend. Of course, there were a few sensible comments. Everyone has their own parenting style. This kind of mocking isn't cool. Ethan abandoned his own child and ran off to play stepdad. But those comments were quickly drowned out by the ones slamming me. 2. 4 years after our divorce, Ethan made his relationship official. His new partner was none other than the rising star and current sensation, star Sophia. She was also the star of the viral lazy parenting video. To the public, this wasn't surprising. After all, the entertainment industry is a messy place, and relationships within it are the norm. The two constantly flaunted their love in front of the media, and despite being out of the spotlight for years, I was often dragged into the conversation. Without exception, every mention was a comparison, one lifted up while the other was torn down. One was a current superstar, the other, a supposedly washed-up actress. It was obvious who people would target. Especially since Ethan had left the marriage with nothing, I was painted as ruthless and heartless by the entire internet. But the truth was, Ethan had been caught with another actress late at night, and I walked in on them red-handed. To save his reputation and career, he volunteered to leave with nothing. That actress, if I remember correctly, was Sophia. None of this was ever made public. Back then, I thought it was better to part amicably. I kept the house and custody of our child, and I let the matter go. Over the years, Ethan had worked tirelessly to boost Sophia's career in the entertainment industry. His sacrifice of leaving with nothing? It meant little. He was still an A-lister, and money was never going to be an issue for him. Glancing at the news notification that popped up on my phone, I turned off the screen. Mia's dance class should be wrapping up soon. It was time to pick her up. 3. When I arrived at the dance studio, Mia was already dressed in her casual clothes, practicing her handwriting while waiting for me. Thanks to her structured education, Mia had always been disciplined from a young age. At just 5 years old, she already knew how to make the most of her time. I waited until she finished writing the character before calling her softly, "Mia." She looked up, her delicate little face breaking into a wide smile. "Mommy, just a moment," she said, quickly tidying up her study materials and putting them into her small backpack. She hopped off the chair and took my hand. As we reached the door, she bowed politely to her teacher and said goodbye. "Goodbye, teacher." Between my career and my child, I chose my child. When I had Mia, my career was at its peak, but I decided to step away from the spotlight to give her more time and attention. Over the years, I've devoted myself to her education and my own growth. I place great importance on manners. To me, politeness is a fundamental reflection of one's upbringing and character, and Mia has always excelled in this aspect. For the short video continued to dominate the trending charts, even sparking a new term, lazy parenting style. Seeing an opportunity, some investors began preparing a parenting reality show. The gimmick and buzz were sure to attract viewers, and viewers meant profit. A few days later, I received a call from the producers of the show, inviting Mia and me to participate in the recording of the reality program, My Kid is a Superstar. I declined without a second thought. Mia is still young, and I don't want her to be overly exposed to the public eye. But something happened that made me change my mind. The day after the call, Mia got into a fight with another child at preschool. The little girl stood stubbornly in the corner, her eyes red and filled with tears. Mia had been practicing kickboxing since she was 3, so I wasn't worried about her getting hurt. I crouched down to meet her eye level and gently asked, "Why did you get into a fight? Can you tell Mommy?" Before Mia could answer, the other child's mom began shouting. "Why?" "Because she doesn't have any manners, of course. Look at what she did to my son. No wonder the internet is full of insults about you, a woman who couldn't even keep her husband wouldn't know how to raise a good child." Mia's little fists clenched tightly. I patted her head softly to calm her down, then slowly stood up straight. "May I ask, ma'am, what you mean by manners? In your view, does having manners mean shouting in public or interrupting someone while they're trying to communicate?" The other mom faltered, clearly at a loss for words. She resorted to making a scene instead. "Just like the internet says, you're pushy and ruthless. I'm not going to argue with you anymore. Your daughter hit my son, and she must apologize today." I maintained a calm but firm tone. "I think we should first figure out what happened before deciding whether an apology is warranted and from whom. I know my daughter well enough to be certain she wouldn't hit someone without reason. But judging by the boy's injuries, she did indeed strike him." Mia attends an international bilingual preschool, not exactly elite, but with a decent faculty. I contacted the teacher and requested the video footage. In the recording, the boy had gone over to tug on Mia's pigtails. Mia frowned and gently pushed his hand away, then returned to coloring in her sketchbook. Unwilling to give up, the boy tried to snatch her crayon. Though Mia has a good temper, she was starting to grow impatient. Still, she politely said, "I'm drawing right now. Maybe you can go play with someone else for a while." Instead of listening, the boy threw her crayon onto the ground with a dramatic smack. Then, raising his chin arrogantly, he said, "My mom told me your dad would rather be someone else's stepdad than stay with you. Your mom isn't as good as a celebrity, and neither are you compared to a celebrity's kid." Mia's delicate brows furrowed deeper and deeper, clearly trying to suppress her anger. But the boy didn't stop there. "My mom also said your mom is a terrible person." The next thing we saw in the footage was Mia's fist landing squarely on his face. The young teacher blushed and apologized to me. "I'm so sorry, Mia's mom. Mia has always been such a sweet and well-behaved child. We didn't expect her to get into a conflict with another kid." I waved it off and told her it was fine. The boy's mom glared at me, her tone aggressive. "What? Did my son say anything untrue? Why did your daughter hit him? Apologize to us right now, or I'll launch an online smear campaign against you." An online smear campaign? How laughable. The internet is already filled with insults about me. What more could she possibly add? I picked Mia up and firmly stated, "Your son provoked her first. My daughter doesn't owe you an apology. I'll cover the medical expenses, but as for the defamation and damage to my reputation, my lawyer will be in touch with you." On the way home, Mia stared out the window, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I steered the car, occasionally glancing at her, my heart aching for my little girl. I tried to make my voice sound light and cheerful. "Mia, would you like to talk to Mommy?" She finally turned to look at me, her voice soft and sweet. "Mommy, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have hit the other kid." "You don't need to apologize to Mommy, sweetheart. You hit him because he called Mommy a bad person, didn't you?" Mia bit her lip, hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Her little pigtails swayed as she moved. "You were standing up for Mommy, and I should thank you for that. But using your fists isn't the only way to solve problems. Next time, let's try responding with words instead, okay? A light blush spread across Mia's cheeks. She squirmed a little and stammered. But Mommy, you said that saying mean things makes us bad kids. Responding with words doesn't mean being mean. I'll show you a video when we get home, and you'll understand. Back home, Mia was still feeling down. She stayed in her car seat and refused to get out. Though she's usually well-behaved and obedient, she's still only 5 years old. It's normal for her to act out a little when she feels wronged. I bent down and carried her out of the car. She nestled into my arms, and the tears she had been holding back finally spilled over. Mommy, is it true that I'm not as good as that other kid? Is that why Daddy doesn't want me? When Ethan and I divorced, Mia was just over 1 year old. Ethan willingly gave up custody. As Mia's biological father, I never prevented him from visiting her. However, in the past 4 years, his visits have been few and far between, and each time there was a media spectacle. To put it plainly, it was all for show. Celebrities always present the side of themselves they want the public to see unless they face a scandal. Her tears soaked my shirt, burning hot, stinging my heart and making my throat dry. No, Mia is amazing, I said gently. Besides, your dad didn't abandon you. It's just that your dad and I didn't get along, so we separated. Even though we're not together, that doesn't stop us from loving you. Mia curled up in my arms and shook her head vigorously. That's not true. The kids at daycare say Dad has another child. I didn't expect this to affect Mia so deeply. Some problems can't be solved by avoiding them. After much thought, I sighed and asked, Mia, a program reached out to me a few days ago. They invited us to participate. That other child and his mom will be there. Do you want to go? Mia's eyes lit up as she looked at me with determination. Yes. I called the production team to check if there were any spots left. When they heard that Mia and I were joining, they practically laughed with delight. Absolutely, we've been saving a spot for you and your precious daughter, Miss Lily. When would you like to join the team? After finalizing the schedule, I arranged for Mia to take a month off from daycare. She practiced her handwriting for a while, then sat sweetly on the couch watching TV. When it comes to parenting, I believe in balancing work and play. Mia always has some time for entertainment each day. Even when it comes to signing her up for various extracurricular activities or specialty classes, I always communicate with her first to ensure she's genuinely interested. Of course, sparking her interest sometimes requires a little strategy. For example, now, I pulled up a few short videos of diplomats confidently debating in international meetings and called her over to watch. Although the content might be complex for a 5-year-old, Mia could still understand the elegance and calm confidence of the diplomats. After watching, her eyes sparkled as she looked up at me and said, Mom, I want to be like that. Perfect. Another skill unlocked. After we finish filming the program, I'll look into enrolling her in a speech and debate class. The next evening, the program announced the guest lineup. In addition to Mia and me, Sophia and her son were participating, along with 3 other celebrity moms and their children. The announcement quickly dominated social media trending topics. My kids a superstar guest lineup. New love, old flame, together again. Sophia and Lily share the stage on kid reality show, the reunion of the century. The comment section was buzzing with activity. Lily must be desperate for cash to join any show that comes her way. Isn't she just asking to be humiliated? Can't wait to see Lily and her daughter get utterly crushed. First, she sent herself up as cannon fodder, and now she's throwing herself to the wolves. She's not broke. She's desperate for fame after all. She walked away from the divorce with Ethan's entire fortune. Respect to the analysis above. Sending love to Sophia, our goddess. Beautiful queen hugs and Finny cutie hugs. Lily is so brave, does she even know how far out of her depth she is? The comments were overwhelmingly in favor of Sophia, and the insults directed at me were colorful and varied. I rarely pay attention to online criticism. My one bottom line is Mia. This time, I'll prove with actions that my daughter is exceptional. To add more drama, the program launched with a surprise live broadcast before the official premiere. Of course, the surprise wasn't really a surprise. They had called us in advance to let us know. Reality shows might not have rigid scripts, but they still need to ensure things don't spiral out of control. We're all actors, after all. Pretending to be shocked when opening the door to a camera crew, Easy enough. I invited the crew inside. Mia was practicing the harp, her fingers deftly plucking the strings to produce a vibrant, melodic tune. When she saw the unfamiliar men carrying cameras, she paused her playing, stood up, and greeted them sweetly. "Hello, gentlemen. I hadn't told Mia about the surprise visit. I wanted her to be herself rather than act for the cameras. Besides, my daughter is talented enough not to need rehearsal." Thanks to her prior experiences in major performances and competitions, Mia, despite her young age, is poised and unafraid of unexpected situations. However, the viewers clearly didn't see it that way. Is this live? It feels so staged. They definitely gave her advance notice. Otherwise, how could it be so perfectly timed? The crew arrives, and the girl is showcasing her talent. This is way too fake. I play the harp, and I have to say, even though I don't like Lily, the little girl's technique is genuinely impressive. Attention-seeking clown. Doesn't anyone think Lily's daughter is stunningly beautiful? Being pretty doesn't matter when you have a mom like that. Imagine how much suffering this kid has to go through. Yeah, it must be her mom forcing her to perform so cruel. The child is still so young. Everyone, rush over to the other live stream. Sophia's family is starting to pack their luggage. Finn is so considerate, I'm officially jealous. Before the surprise visit, the task assigned to us over the phone was to have the kids pack their own luggage. Mia and I divided the work. She packed her things, and I packed mine. The cameraman followed her closely, documenting her every move in real time. She pulled out a suitcase almost as tall as herself and began carefully sorting and placing comic books, snacks, and toys inside. The live chat comments started flooding in. Figures Lily wouldn't raise a good kid. She's this big and only thinks about snacks and toys. Look at what she's packing, nothing remotely useful. Go watch Finny next door instead. Exactly. I just switched over from Finny's stream. Everyone should go check it out. He didn't even pack his own luggage. He helped his mom first, while Sophia was just playing. Such a thoughtful boy. Truly, comparisons hurt. Of course, some viewers couldn't bear to see a child criticized and stood up for her. These comments are way too harsh. She's just a 5-year-old kid. It's normal for her to love playing. Criticizing a child? At least she can play the zither at 5. What were you doing at 5 besides playing in the dirt? Regardless, Misty is still no match for Finley. The suitcase was almost full when the cameraman reminded her. "Little one, these things can't be brought into the show." Mia turned around, blinking her big eyes. She cautiously asked, "Mom said the place we're going to might be hard on us. I wanted to bring these to share with the kids there. Is that okay?" The cameraman paused for a moment, then replied after a few seconds, "Of course you can." Hearing his answer, Mia beamed sweetly at the camera, her voice filled with joy. "Thank you, sir." With just 2 sentences and a smile, Mia successfully changed the tone of some of the live chat comments. "Oh my goodness, that last smile killed me. She's way too adorable. Where are all the people ranting about her being rude now? Speak up, her mom may not be great, but this kid is genuinely a good one." Of course, it wasn't enough to shift the majority's long-held biases in such a short time. There were still plenty of negative comments. "Quite the little actress already, huh? Her mom taught her well." "I think I detect a whiff of manipulation here." And plenty of comparisons. "Our Finley is still more likable." "Finley is putting his mom's shoes on." "Such a young age and he's already worrying about his beautiful mother." "Ha ha ha, I just came from Finley's stream. He really is so thoughtful." Once the luggage was packed, we headed to our destination. The show's premise was to showcase children's adaptability and problem-solving skills, so the location chosen was a remote little village. Nestled by the mountains and water, the environment was quite scenic. Mia handed the big box of gifts she had prepared to the director, asking him to distribute them to the local children. Her beautiful eyes darted curiously around the surroundings. "Mom, this place is so pretty." I patted her head, her joy contagious. Sophia was the last to arrive. She was wearing high heels, walking slowly with beads of sweat on her face. Behind her was Finn, pulling 2 suitcases, one big, one small. She gave us a polite smile. "Sorry, my shoes weren't ideal for this. Took me a bit longer." She must have had a hard time walking uphill in heels. When she saw Mia and me, her expression shifted slightly, though she maintained a poised smile. I looked back at her, my gaze ultimately landing on Finn, who was drenched in sweat. In the short videos, he'd always been busy, his face never shone clearly. I only knew he was a good-looking child. Now, taking a closer look, I quickly dismissed the thought in my mind. Without evidence, I couldn't make baseless assumptions. Once everyone was present, the cameras officially started rolling. For the next week, we would live under constant surveillance. Since it was the first day, the production team didn't assign any tasks. After dividing up the houses, we were free to move around. The dilapidated rural courtyard, uninhabited for a long time, reeked of mildew. I opened the windows to let in fresh air and began cleaning up. Mia bounced over happily. "Mom, let me help you." I smiled at her. "All right, sweetheart, let's divide the chores. Look around and see what you think you can handle." She scanned the room and chose to wipe the tables, take out the trash, and tidy the bed. All tasks within her current abilities. The trash bin was a bit far, and I didn't feel comfortable letting her go alone. So I had her carry the trash bag while I walked with her. Unexpectedly, we bumped into Sophia and Finn on the way. Sophia was following closely behind Finn, who was also carrying a trash bag. When she saw us, she paused for a moment, then flashed a harmless smile. "I heard Ethan say you're quite diligent and have high expectations for your child," she said. "Didn't expect you'd also use the laid-back parenting style. What a coincidence." The implication was clear. She was accusing me of copying her. I frowned, glanced at the camera recording us, and found it impossible to fake the kind of hypocrisy she displayed. Unable to come up with pleasantries, I chose to ignore her entirely. I grabbed my daughter's hand and walked past her without a word. After we had walked a little distance away, Mia gently shook my hand and looked up at me, asking, "Mom, is Dad not here because of that boy earlier?" I hadn't shown her the short video, but Mia, sensitive as always, had picked up on my attitude. I crouched down to bring her closer to me. Whenever I needed to have serious conversations with Mia, I liked kneeling to her level so she could feel we were equals. I also made an effort to soften my voice during these moments. It was my belief that yelling never helped children listen better. She was only 5, too young to hide her emotions. In just a few seconds, tears welled up in her eyes, and my heart ached for her all over again. "Sweetheart, I've told you before, Dad didn't leave because of you. You're still young, so you might not understand now. But when you grow up, you'll realize that when parents separate, it is never the child's fault. Mia, you didn't do anything wrong, and neither did that boy. I brought you here to participate in this show because I wanted people to see how amazing my little Mia is. You're no less talented or capable than any other child." Mia nodded, half understanding and half not. "I get it, Mom." That evening, since it was the first day of filming, the production team laid out a large dinner spread for everyone, a sort of opening celebration. Mia and I were seated with Sophia and her son Finn. Mia was sensible for her age. Perhaps it was her youth that made her open to understanding things when they were explained to her. While she was still a little upset, she showed no signs of rejection or hostility. At the table, Sophia kept ordering Finn around. One moment, she'd tell him to grab this, the next, she'd have him fetch that. It was as if she were trying to sell the image of a struggling mother who couldn't handle parenting. Meanwhile, Mia quietly ate from her bowl. If she wanted something she couldn't reach, she'd softly let me know, and I'd get it for her. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. I had just finished deboning a piece of fish and placing it in Mia's bowl when Sophia turned to me with a smile. "I remember your daughter is older than my Finny, isn't she?" she said, her tone light but pointed. "Yet you're still taking care of her during meals. In our family, it's the kids who take care of me." I calmly picked up a shrimp, peeled it, and replied slowly, "Every age has its own responsibilities. Right now, they're still young, and their focus should be on growing and learning, not on waiting on their perfectly capable mothers." Sophia's expression faltered slightly, though her thick makeup masked most of the embarrassment. "You're absolutely right," she said, recovering quickly. "But my son has always been so thoughtful and loves to pamper me. What can I say? Being spoiled does make a person lazier." Anyone with half a brain could hear the jab in her words that I had no one to spoil me. I gave her a polite smile, refusing to indulge her nonsense. "It certainly does." I couldn't help but recall the time I caught her hiding behind Ethan when their affair was exposed. Even now, I could vividly remember her cowering, hoping he'd shield her. She must think that enough time has passed that no one would believe me if I brought up the truth, dismissing it as mere jealousy. And yet here she was, openly provoking me. I glanced at Finn, who was still attending to her every whim, and thought to myself, surely she wasn't foolish enough to keep such a ticking time bomb by her side while acting this brazenly. My words had clearly struck a nerve. Sophia's face flushed red, her thick foundation failing to hide her anger. She didn't dare retaliate openly, though, and was forced to swallow her frustration. Being named the industry's newest starlet, besides Ethan's orchestrations, did mean she had some acting skills. After a moment of composure, she returned to her usual demeanor and didn't attempt to challenge me again. The production team had also prepared plenty of snacks for the kids. Upon entering the set, all communication devices and cash were handed over, including the children's snacks and toys. Mia didn't have a habit of eating snacks after meals, so I set her share aside for when she might need them later. The other mothers also took care to save the leftover snacks for their kids. Only Sophia was different. She casually picked up a bag of chips, tore it open, and began munching on them. The cameraman assigned to follow her reminded her gently, "Miss Sophia, these are for the children." Sophia blinked and struck a playful pose. "Oh, I know my son and I always fight over snacks at home," she said with a giggle. "You know the saying, raise kids with frugality, raise yourself with indulgence, gotta grow strong, right?" Haha, next to me sat Skylar, a celebrity infamous for her biting remarks. She leaned closer to me and whispered, "Does she really think this is cute? Being her kid must be the worst luck imaginable." I chuckled silently, withholding any comment. The dinner wrapped up and everyone retired to their rooms. Mia pulled out her workbook from her small suitcase and meticulously practiced her handwriting. The cameraman even zoomed in for a close-up shot. After finishing her writing exercises, she went on to solve a few math problems. These were habits long cultivated. Because of the filming, there was no need for her to attend extracurricular classes, which already made her daily routine much easier. Before bed, she curled up in my arms, acting sweetly, and asked if I could tell her a bedtime story. I didn't refuse, and in a gentle voice, I began telling her a story to lull her to sleep. The next morning, at exactly 6 o'clock, Mia woke up on time. Her internal clock had always been very precise. Every morning, she would practice her basic skills for a while, and I would get up with her to freshen up and do some morning exercises. I had high expectations for Mia, but of course, my strictness came with the prerequisite that I also needed to lead by example. When the production team delivered the task card, the little girl was already doing her final stretches. She set her leg down from the bench, ran over to take the card, and, of course, didn't forget to politely thank the staff. Today's task involved a group of kids heading out to find ingredients. The ingredients had already been entrusted to designated individuals, and the kids would need to use their talents to obtain them. As for us moms, we only needed to sit in the monitoring room, drink tea, and chat. After all, the show's premise was to highlight the children's abilities. The task card included a written description of the appearances of those holding the ingredients. The kids were all around 5 or 6 years old. The director appointed 6-year-old Sonny as the team leader, as he was the oldest among them. Under the director's guidance, the group began their search around the village. It wasn't long before they encountered their first challenge. Sonny, who was still in preschool, had limited reading ability. He stammered through the text for quite some time, managing to read only 5 simple words. Finally, scratching his head in embarrassment, he turned to the other little soldiers behind him and asked, "Does anyone here know how to read?" Mia stretched her neck to take a look and politely asked, "Big brother, can I give it a try?" Sonny handed her the card without hesitation. Mia read the card slowly, word by word, but accurately pronounced each one. Sonny's eyes widened, and he praised her without reservation. "Wow, you're amazing." Mia's cheeks flushed red as she pointed to the letters above the words and explained, "These are phonetics. If you don't know a word, you can just read the phonetics." The 2 moms who had been asking Sophia for tips on how to be hands-off while raising kids gradually fell silent after seeing Mia's performance. Skylar turned to me in disbelief and exclaimed, "Your kid can already use phonetics to read." I replied calmly, "Yes, I've been teaching her at home." Following the hints on the card, the kids quickly identified their target. The person required each child to recite 5 poems. the difficulty level wasn't high. Aside from Finn stumbling a bit, everyone completed the task impressively. After securing the ingredients, the kids were about to leave when Mia stopped them. In her sweet, childish voice, she said, "Mom says that when someone helps us, we should thank them." She then bowed earnestly and said, "Thank you." The other kids quickly followed suit, each thanking the staff in turn. The next part was an individual task. The children had to send one representative to showcase a talent. Since most of the kids were children of celebrities, they all had some skills. Some sang, others danced, each showing their unique abilities. Mia performed a short ballet routine. Though it wasn't particularly difficult, her movements were graceful and fluid. When it was Finn's turn, he blushed and told a rather childish bedtime story, which was enough to pass the task. That evening, the production team didn't provide food. The kids had brought back the ingredients, and it was up to us moms to cook. In the rundown old countryside house, it was clear there wouldn't be any gas stoves. There was a single stove with an iron pot on top and a pile of neatly stacked firewood in the corner. The production team, thankfully, provided a lighter, sparing us from having to rub sticks together to start a fire. We moms began dividing up the tasks. Sophia, fiddling with her manicured nails, said in a delicate voice, "Can my son do my part of the work?" Skylar shot her a disapproving look. "Your son is only how old?" Sophia pouted, putting on an innocent, pitiful expression. Standing nearby, Finn quickly chimed in, "Auntie, I can do it. I like taking care of Mom." He was indeed a thoughtful child, though there was something a little unsettling about it. It felt like he was overly cautious. As mothers, we wouldn't dream of letting someone else's child do chores while our own kids played. Skylar called her son over and took Finn away. Meanwhile, Sophia had already retreated to her room to rest. The next day's task was competitive. The kids had to participate in games to earn food. The activities included basketball shooting, obstacle courses, rock climbing, and other physical challenges. Mia was in good shape but couldn't quite match the boys in strength. In the end, she brought back 2 portions of food. The little girl seemed a bit disappointed. I quickly knelt down, pinched her cheeks, and smiled as I encouraged her. Nobody's perfect at everything. Everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. And you've already done an amazing job, Mia nodded, her face lighting up with a smile like a little angel. On the third day, the focus shifted to mental challenges. The tasks included sliding puzzles, solving Rubik's cubes, disentangling metal rings, and rapid mental arithmetic. Mia completed each task flawlessly, her speed exceeding everyone's expectations. One of the other moms approached me, her tone filled with envy. "Your Mia is incredible. How do you usually teach her?" She had starred in a major drama 2 years ago, which became a hit and propelled her career to new heights. Perhaps due to her busy work schedule, her relationship with her daughter wasn't very close. When she first joined the show, she often turned to Sophia for advice on how to let go and manage parenting. I gave her a polite smile and answered honestly. When Mia was very young, I often gave her educational toys to play with. I also trained her in a more systematic way. She asked again, "Is it too late for my daughter to start now?" I thought for a moment and gave her a fair answer. For kids at this stage, you can start cultivating her talents. Of course, the key is to ensure that she's interested, rather than forcing her. That approach will only backfire. Children need communication and understanding. You have to treat them as equals. As the show progressed, more of Mia's strengths were revealed. Not only was she talented, but also obedient and considerate. Soon, all the other moms came to me for advice except for Sophia, whose expression grew darker by the day. Not that anyone paid much attention to her. On the 6th day, the task was a team collaboration challenge. The kids were taken to the local market to run stalls and earn money to buy ingredients. A cheerful elderly woman, likely in her 70s, paid for her purchase and then glanced back and forth between Mia and Finn. Smiling warmly, she asked, "Are these 2 siblings? They look so alike." In the control room, Sophia accidentally knocked over her water glass. In truth, Mia and Finn didn't look that much alike. Mia resembled me, while Finn bore more resemblance to Sophia. But if you looked closely, you'd notice traces of Ethan's features in both of their faces. I leaned back in my chair, watching coldly as Sophia pretended to stay calm, wiping down the table. That evening, Sophia and Finn didn't stay until the end of the recording. She made an excuse about feeling unwell and left with Finn. What a fool, panicking before anything had even happened. Since the video footage required editing, the show aired only a week after the recording wrapped. By then, Mia's vacation had ended and life had returned to normal. As soon as I got back, I contacted a private investigator. I handed over the strands of Finn's hair I had collected and asked them to obtain Ethan's DNA for a paternity test. From the moment I first saw Finn, I couldn't shake the feeling that he resembled Ethan. That's why I secretly collected strands of his hair. The test results came back quickly, confirming what I had suspected all along. Sophia's panic and hasty retreat had already confirmed my suspicions. The paternity test was just for future use. After all, Finn had gained significant online attention after Sophia posted about him. His birth date was easy to find, just 10 months younger than Mia. This meant that Sophia became pregnant shortly after I had given birth to Mia. No wonder Ethan had insisted on leaving the marriage with nothing. Even his awful parents didn't come to stir up trouble. Ethan's family was from a rural area. With his striking appearance and his carefully crafted inspirational image, he had shot to fame in the entertainment industry within a few years. We met and fell in love on set. When we were together, he often joked that his parents hoped he'd have kids. Every time they visited, they'd bring it up, bragging about how amazing their son was and how he needed a son to carry on the family name. Their deeply rooted preference for sons was something I didn't agree with, but I didn't want to argue too much either. Thankfully, they lived far away in their hometown, so we rarely saw them. I didn't take it to heart. When I gave birth to Mia, his mother came to stay for a few days, supposedly to help me during my postpartum recovery. The moment she saw Mia was a girl, she packed up and left the next day. Luckily, I had a maternity nurse. Without his mother around, I actually felt more at ease. Afterward, I devoted myself entirely to raising my daughter, neglecting my career and his parents' attitudes altogether. Eventually, Ethan and I divorced. He left with nothing, and Mia stayed with me. His parents never showed up throughout the entire process. Looking back now, it was odd. His parents must have already known about Finn and supported Ethan all along. It must have been hard for them, keeping their beloved grandson a secret for so many years. On Saturday night, the show aired. The first episode featured us assigning rooms, cleaning, and the kids searching for ingredients. Most of the screen time went to Sophia and Finn. Finn's small figure darted around, working tirelessly, while Sophia sat on a little stool giving orders. "Finn, that corner isn't clean yet. Finn, sweep that area again." Suddenly, she screamed and jumped up. "Finn, come here, there's a spider." Finn sighed quietly, grabbed a broom, and helped her chase the spider away. The comment section exploded. "Such a capable little guy, I want to take him home. Ha ha ha, our Finley is working so hard for his clueless mom. If my kid were half as sensible as Finley, I'd light incense in gratitude. Wow, what amazing parenting, I want a child like this. What a little gentleman, not only does he care for his mom, but he protects her too." When the footage of the encounter with the elderly woman played, the comments surged again. "Lily, what kind of person is she? How dare she ignore our goddess Sophia when greeted? Us, copycat trying to imitate but failing miserably. Lily, get out of Hollywood." Am I the only one who thinks what Lily said to her daughter later made a lot of sense? "You're not alone, I agree with you," and Lily even crouches down to talk to her child. I might actually be warming up to her. The evening premiere event played on. Oh my gosh, Finley is such a sweetheart. 2 kids, one takes care of their mom, while the other needs their mom to take care of them. As expected, the comparison totally crushed Lily and her daughter. Ha ha ha, a perfect example of raise boys modestly and girls luxuriously. Save all the wealth for your own growth, learn something new today. But Lily actually made a valid point: kids should act according to their age. Finley seems to have lost his childhood innocence. If I ever have kids, I'd want their childhood to be happy. As much as I dislike Lily, why do I enjoy watching her clap back at people? A flexible mom who can still manage herself, hahaha, my internet hero. Skylar's scolding of Sophia was edited out, probably to avoid public backlash. Later, Mia came to me after practicing her calligraphy, just as the show displayed her showcasing her talents to win over some ingredients. She lay on my lap, watching the scrolling comments on the screen and curiously asked, "Mommy, what do those words mean?" I patted her head with a smile. "They're all praising how amazing you are, Mia." They really were. In the morning, during her basic skills practice, the comments had criticized us for being pretentious in our acting. But now, wow, I can't even hate her. This kid is truly impressive. Who remembers that close-up shot of her calligraphy? Her writing is absolutely beautiful. And the zither performance, it sounded so mesmerizing. Unbelievable, I can't even compare to a 5-year-old. Not just you, everyone here is probably feeling the same way. Even if it's acting, her skills are undeniably real, gotta admit. Misty raised her exceptionally well. Talented, graceful Mia. Being talented is one thing, but she's also so polite. I'm officially a fan now. Ah, her movements are so elegant when she spins, she looks like a ballerina on a music box. Does Finley's bedtime story count as a talent too? In this round, I declare Mia as the winner. With just one episode aired, Mia captured countless hearts. As the show progressed, her talents continued to shine, showcasing what it meant to truly dominate. I too went from being criticized to being praised for my parenting. Comments flooded the internet. Raising kids requires effort, and I want a talented daughter like hers too. As time passed and the program neared its finale, I had successfully regained my reputation. However, criticism of Sophia began to rise, calling her lazy and overly demanding, leaving everything for her child to handle. The comments weren't too harsh until that incident with the elderly woman, who mentioned how similar Mia and Finn looked to each other. Sophia fled the scene, and the criticism against her peaked. Illness, my foot. She was bossing Finley around to wash her feet just the night before. She's guilty of something. The more I look at Finley and Mia, the more I think they genuinely resemble each other. Could they actually be siblings? Photos comparing Ethan and Finn began circulating. Rather than resembling Mia, isn't it more accurate to say she looks like Ethan? No wonder Ethan forfeited everything during the divorce. Mystery solved. We owe Lily an apology. As the situation spiraled out of control, Ethan and Sophia quickly stepped forward to do damage control. Ethan posted a paternity test proving his innocence, and Sophia vehemently denied her child was Ethan's. They even hired online PR teams to spread counter-narratives, but their tactics were clumsy and ended up targeting me. Lily's jealousy is showing, and it's ugly. Oh, can't handle your ex moving on? Sneakily stirring up drama. Lily, be kind. You all must be Lily's hired PR team. Stop smearing our Sophia. The evidence is clear. Stop arguing. Not only is Finn not Ethan's child, but Mia might not be hers either. The narrative turned against Mia, with videos of her supposedly hitting another child before joining the show being deliberately edited and spread online. Netizens, swayed by the drama, believed they'd uncovered the truth and began to turn on me. I reached out to a prominent tabloid journalist and handed them the folder containing Ethan and Finn's paternity test results. "If you don't believe me, you can verify it yourself," I said. I then obtained the full footage from the preschool showing the context of Mia's incident and posted it online. After handling everything, I contacted my lawyer and sent a legal notice to the boy's mother. I had nearly forgotten about this case until the video reminded me. The full footage clearly explained the reasons behind Mia's actions, and viewers who had initially expressed disappointment in her quickly shifted to feeling sympathy and support. The paparazzi were relentless, quickly releasing a genuine parentage test report. Ethan panicked, screaming about going to the police. But being a celebrity, earning a hefty income came at the expense of losing some privacy. He was asked to live stream the entire process of getting a new test done to prove his innocence. The thought alone made him hesitate. After all, he knew better than anyone whether Finn was his son or not. Ethan and Sophia's acting careers came to a definitive end. The two became disgraced public figures, with brands rushing to terminate contracts and leaving them to face lawsuits for massive compensation fees. Just when everyone thought the drama was over, Ethan's long-absent parents came forward. With tears streaming down their faces, they wailed on camera, "We just want a grandson. Is that so wrong? Our family has carried on for 10 generations. We can't let the legacy end with him." Ethan's misfortune seemed endless, burdened by such a clueless entourage. First Sophia, And now his parents, every single one of them, was practically lining up to sabotage him. Far from gaining sympathy, their actions only fueled the public's outrage even more. Oh, so there's a royal throne to inherit now? Gotta have a son, huh? He's already an emperor of acting. Guess they think he's literally got an empire to pass down. This family is revolting, thank goodness Lily has nothing to do with them anymore. Parasitic scum, absolute disgrace. From there, Ethan and Sophia were permanently blacklisted. Things began to settle down, and several directors reached out to collaborate with me. I initially planned to decline all offers and focus on raising Mia, but she overheard one of my phone calls. Standing before me with a calm gaze, she said, "Mom, I can take care of myself just fine now. I want my mom to shine on the stage she loves." I gently ran my fingers through her soft hair. My daughter had grown up without me even realizing it. The next time Finn made headlines, it was in the news. The little boy had been beaten black and blue. Although Sophia had given birth to Ethan's son, he avoided publicly acknowledging the child too soon, fearing the impact on his reputation. As for his desperate for a grandson parents, they hadn't even met the boy before Ethan's scandal broke. The family legacy mattered, but the public image mattered more. Sophia was left raising the child on her own, and her temperament was far from nurturing. When the boy's cries pushed her to frustration, she lashed out at him with punches and kicks. The boy eventually learned to please her, but she posted his attempts online as if they were cute, labeling it as lazy parenting. Now, without the glamorous career or massive income, Sophia found it hard to adjust. Transitioning from riches to rags was far more difficult than the other way around. Her frustrations with life were taken out on the boy, culminating in a particularly brutal beating that landed him in the hospital and exposed her actions to the public. I sighed as I read the news. No wonder I always felt something was off about that child, but I wasn't a saint, and this wasn't my problem to fix. Ethan came to see me several times, begging for another chance for Mia's sake. He even knelt in front of me, tears streaming down his face. I was fed up. I packed up and moved, taking Mia with me. Before I knew it, Mia was ready to start elementary school. I brought my parents over to help care for her and hired 2 nannies as well. Only then did I feel comfortable returning to work. After much deliberation, I chose a challenging role in an independent film with a social message. The director was a talented newcomer who nervously reminded me, "Miss Lily, there's no pay for this project." I didn't need the money. Instead of taking on high-paying blockbuster roles, I felt I needed a project that could truly showcase my skills. I nodded and smiled warmly. "I know. I think this film's message can help a lot of people. I love acting, and my daughter wants to see me shine on screen. I believe this film aligns perfectly with that. My Mia is exceptional, and as her mother, I want to prove to the world that the amazing Misty has an equally amazing mom."